A college campus at dusk. It's a world that exists in a state of perpetual promise. The soft hum of conversation drifts from open windows, distant laughter echoes across manicured lawns, and the warm glow of library lights cuts through the deepening twilight. This is a sanctuary for learning, a place of new beginnings. But beneath the familiar rhythms of academic life, shadows gather. These are not just the shadows cast by old brick buildings. They are the hidden dangers and unspoken fears that can haunt even the most idyllic of campuses. Across the United States, college towns are microcosms of society, each with a unique culture. Some are sprawling urban universities, teeming with the energy of tens of thousands of students. Others are small, secluded colleges, nestled in quiet rural corners of the country. But they all share a common purpose: to foster community and expand the horizons of the mind. Yet, the very openness that encourages connection can also create profound vulnerabilities. The victims of campus crime are as diverse as the student populations themselves. They are freshmen taking their first steps away from home, athletes, honor students, and quiet scholars known only to a few. While property crimes like theft are more common, it is the rare, violent incidents that leave the deepest scars. According to data from the U.S. Department of Education, tens of thousands of criminal offenses are reported on campuses each year. In 2022 alone, nearly 28,000 crimes were documented at post-secondary institutions. Behind these stark numbers are real people, whose lives and the lives of those around them are forever altered. This is a story about a shadow that fell over one such community, a story that begins with the vibrant promise of youth and ends in a silence that has lingered for decades.
It is the story of two students whose bright futures were extinguished in an act of shocking brutality, leaving behind a legacy of fear and a mystery that endures to this day. Let us travel back to the autumn of 1970. The air in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia is crisp, and the leaves are beginning to turn, painting the hillsides in strokes of gold and crimson. At a university nestled in this landscape, life is moving to the familiar cadence of a new semester. Two students, Susan Lowell and Elizabeth Bennett, both 19, are inseparable. They share a dorm room, classes, and a passion for literature. Friends describe them as radiant: Susan, the thoughtful and studious one; Elizabeth, the free spirit with an infectious laugh. On the evening of October 5th, a Monday, they told their friends they were heading to a local diner for a late-night meal, a welcome break from studying for midterms. They were last seen leaving their dormitory around 9 p.m., walking together under the amber glow of the campus streetlights. They promised to be back in an hour or two. They were never seen alive again. As the hours passed, a quiet unease began to settle among their friends. 10 p.m. came and went, then 11. A call to the diner confirmed they had never arrived. By midnight, the unease had sharpened into real fear. Their resident advisor was notified, and by 1 a.m., campus security began a preliminary search, their flashlight beams cutting through the darkness, sweeping across empty walkways and silent courtyards. The initial assumption was that the girls had simply lost track of time, perhaps meeting up with other friends. But as the night wore on, that hope began to fade. By sunrise on Tuesday, the local police were officially involved. The search expanded from the campus grounds to the surrounding town and the winding country roads that led into the mountains.
Officers went door to door in the dormitory, questioning anyone who might have seen or heard anything. Friends, classmates, and professors were interviewed, each conversation adding to a timeline that ended abruptly at 9 p.m. The girls had simply vanished into the cool autumn night. There was no note, no sign of a struggle in their room, nothing to suggest they had planned to go anywhere but the diner. It was as if they had walked out of their lives and into thin air. For 2 agonizing days, the campus community held its breath. Flyers bearing the smiling faces of Susan and Elizabeth were posted on every bulletin board and shop window. Search parties composed of hundreds of student volunteers combed the dense woods bordering the university, their calls echoing through the trees. The mood on campus shifted from anxious optimism to a pervasive, chilling dread. Every rustle of leaves, every distant siren seemed to be a harbinger of the news everyone feared but no one dared to speak aloud. The disappearance of two of their own had shattered the illusion of safety, transforming the familiar campus into a place of uncertainty and fear. The question hung heavy in the air, a silent weight on the entire community. Where were Susan and Elizabeth? The answer, when it came, was more horrific than anyone could have imagined. On the morning of October 8th, a pair of hunters were making their way through a remote, densely wooded ravine several miles from the university. It was a place seldom visited, a quiet corner of the wilderness known only to locals. One of the men noticed something out of place, a patch of disturbed earth and a flash of color that didn't belong to the autumn foliage. As they drew closer, a sickening, metallic scent hung in the air. What they found there would become the defining image of a crime that scarred the soul of a generation. The scene that greeted the first responding officers was one of profound and calculated brutality.
The bodies of Susan Lowell and Elizabeth Bennett had been discovered. They had been left in a shallow clearing, partially concealed by brush. The violence inflicted upon them was extreme, speaking to a rage that defied comprehension. The evidence at the scene was sparse. The remote location, exposed to the elements for nearly 3 days, had compromised much of the potential forensic evidence. Investigators worked with meticulous care, photographing every leaf and stone, searching for anything the killer might have left behind: a footprint, a fiber, a single drop of blood. But the killer had been careful. The area was scoured for clues, yet yielded almost nothing. There were no clear tire tracks on the nearby dirt road, no discarded weapon, and no fingerprints. The crime scene told a story of terrifying violence, but it offered no clues as to the identity of its author. The only items recovered were small, personal effects belonging to the victims, confirming their identities beyond any doubt. As the coroner's team carefully removed the bodies, a somber silence fell over the investigators. This was not a crime of passion committed in the heat of the moment. The location, the nature of the attack, and the lack of evidence all pointed to something more sinister: a predator who knew the area, who acted with chilling precision, and who had vanished without a trace. The gruesome discovery in the woods marked the end of a desperate search, but it was only the beginning of a complex and frustrating investigation, a hunt for a killer who seemed to be as elusive as a ghost. With the discovery of the bodies, the investigation plunged into a labyrinth of theories, potential suspects, and frustrating dead ends. The initial focus, as is standard procedure, fell on those closest to the victims. Detectives meticulously reconstructed the last few weeks of the girls' lives, interviewing dozens of friends, classmates, and family members.
They scrutinized journals, letters, and class notes, searching for any hint of a secret relationship, a hidden conflict, or a simmering grudge. An early theory centered on a male acquaintance who had reportedly shown an unwelcome romantic interest in one of the girls. He was questioned extensively, his alibi examined and re-examined. He claimed to have been studying in the library all night, a story corroborated by several witnesses. With no evidence linking him to the crime, investigators were forced to look elsewhere. Another lead emerged from a rumor that the girls had been seen arguing with a stranger in town a week before their disappearance. Police spent days canvassing local businesses and hangouts, trying to identify this mysterious man. The description was vague: tall, dark hair, wearing a denim jacket, and it matched hundreds of men in the area. The lead evaporated into thin air. As the weeks turned into months, the case grew colder. The investigation was a massive undertaking, consuming thousands of man-hours. Police followed up on hundreds of tips from the public, many fueled by fear and speculation. They investigated reports of suspicious vehicles, strange individuals seen near campus, and even consulted with psychics. Each potential lead was pursued with diligence, but each one ultimately led to a dead end. The forensic technology of the 1970s was limited. Without DNA analysis, investigators relied on fingerprints, blood typing, and fiber analysis. The few trace elements found at the scene could not be matched to any known suspect. The case took on a life of its own, becoming a dark legend in the region. Over the years, several other names would be considered persons of interest. A transient passing through the area was questioned. A recently released convict from a nearby prison was investigated.
Even the infamous serial killer Ted Bundy, who was active during that era, was briefly considered, as his pattern of targeting young college women was chillingly similar. But no concrete evidence ever emerged to connect him or anyone else to the murders. Each new theory offered a fleeting moment of hope before dissolving under the weight of scrutiny, leaving detectives and the victims' families back where they started. The absence of a clear motive or a viable suspect was maddening, creating a vacuum that was filled with speculation and fear. The investigation was not just a search for a killer. It was a battle against the fading of memory and the slow, agonizing passage of time. The murder of Susan and Elizabeth sent shockwaves far beyond the campus grounds. What began as a local tragedy quickly escalated into a national media frenzy. News vans with large satellite dishes became a fixture outside the university gates, their bright lights a constant, intrusive reminder of the horror that had unfolded. Headlines across the country used dramatic language, painting a picture of a peaceful college town under siege by an unseen menace. The impact on the community was immediate and profound. A palpable sense of fear descended upon the campus. The once bustling quads grew quiet after dark. Students who used to walk alone now moved in groups, their keys clutched in their hands. The university administration implemented new security measures, increased patrols, emergency call boxes, and a campus-wide escort service. But these measures did little to quell the deep-seated anxiety. The world no longer felt safe. In the absence of facts, rumors filled the void. Theories spread like wildfire through the dormitories and local diners. Was the killer a student? A local resident? A drifter? Every stranger was viewed with suspicion. This atmosphere of distrust eroded the close-knit fabric of the community.
Parents from across the country called their children, pleading with them to be careful or even to come home. Enrollment at the university saw a noticeable dip the following year. The psychological toll was immense. The crime didn't just take 2 lives, it stole the innocence of an entire generation of students, replacing it with a lingering sense of vulnerability. The echoes of that fear would reverberate for years, a permanent scar on the memory of the town. Decades have passed since that autumn in 1970, yet the murders of Susan Lowell and Elizabeth Bennett remain an open wound. The case file is thick with aging reports, faded photographs, and the ghosts of dead-end leads. It stands as one of the region's most haunting and infamous cold cases. The lingering mysteries are what keep the story alive, passed down from one generation of students to the next like a cautionary tale. The most prominent unanswered question, of course, is the identity of the killer. Was this a singular act of monstrous violence by an individual who was never caught? Or was it the work of a serial predator who moved on to other towns, other victims, leaving a trail of unsolved crimes across the country? The lack of any clear motive only deepens the mystery. There was no robbery, no known personal connection. The crime appears to have been an act of pure, random evil, which is perhaps the most terrifying possibility of all. Modern technology has offered glimmers of hope. In recent years, the case has been periodically reopened. The original evidence has been re-examined using advanced forensic techniques like DNA analysis, which were unimaginable at the time of the crime. But the evidence, degraded by time and the elements, has so far failed to yield a conclusive profile. Each new attempt brings a fresh wave of media attention and a brief surge of hope for the families, followed by the familiar, quiet disappointment.
The legacy of this crime is not just in the unanswered questions, but in the changes it inspired. The murders were a brutal wake-up call, contributing to a nationwide conversation about campus safety that continues to this day. The memory of Susan and Elizabeth lives on, not only in the hearts of those who knew them, but in the very fabric of the university they attended. They are a permanent reminder that behind the serene facade of academic life, the world can be a dangerous place. The shadow that fell over that campus in 1970 has never truly lifted. It remains a testament to 2 bright lives cut short and a chilling mystery that refuses to be forgotten.